Until Dawn is out in theaters, new horror film from director David F. Sandberg, who made the two Shazam movies. This is based on a popular video game from back in 2015, which I admit I had not played, so I'm coming at this with a fresh eye. But from what I gather, it's not a direct adaptation, it's rather a similar story, similar premise, but with different characters and different plot details taking place in the same world as the game. And the premise is this: a group of 5 young people take shelter in a mysterious abandoned lodge in the middle of the woods to wait out a storm. Then a serial killer shows up, murders all of them, and then they wake up back at the lodge at the beginning of the same evening. Turns out the night keeps repeating, and every time new horrors and elements are added to make survival difficult. And the only way to actually get out is to survive all the way until dawn. So essentially, Groundhog Day meets Cabin in the Woods. Now, on paper, this is an excellent premise, I think, to have these people slowly figure out and get better at avoiding the various monsters, but to counterbalance that, new monsters and new dangers keep appearing. And during the first half, I honestly thought this was shaping up to be quite fun. Even if it was a little formulaic, I felt that it might use these familiar horror elements and familiar types of monsters in interesting and entertaining ways. But unfortunately, in the second half, the movie falls off a cliff, and by the end of it, I was almost confused how much it managed to drop the ball. I think there are two main problems with it. One, the film skips over what I would think was going to be the most interesting part of it. So we see these characters experience the first 3 or 4 nights in a row. They are initially, of course, confused. Then they start to slowly piece things together. They start to uncover pieces of the puzzle. And then they wake up again. And someone says, no, actually, this isn't night 5. This is night 13. And 13 is apparently the maximum limit before you turn into a monster yourself. And for some reason, none of them can remember the nights in between. They only watch a couple of recordings on their mobile phones and then proceed to the final act. I was like, what? It doesn't make any sense within the story to have them suddenly experience selective amnesia. It doesn't work narratively. I mean, seriously, as soon as they began watching these recordings of the missing nights, I was like, shit, this is the best part of the film. I want to see more of this, not just 3 minutes of teasing. Give me that, please. It honestly feels like they were making the movie and then a studio exec looked at the clock and said, oh shit, we're already an hour 15 minutes in. We gotta speed things up. We gotta move into the final act. Let's do a sudden time jump. It is one of the strangest and worst choices I've seen in movies in a while. Again, the camera recordings are the best part of the movie for me, especially with the creepy glitching effects. More of that would have been great, and I think would have really added a unique element to this film that would set it apart from other horror films. Second problem is the movie explains itself to the exact degree that makes it incomprehensible and stupid. See, so some movies explain everything at the end. They give you the full background of what was going on, and you get to have that, oh, that's what it was moment. The Prestige probably being the best example. All of the pieces of the puzzle fall exactly into place. And then there's the other approach. There are other movies which opt for no explanation at all. They deliberately leave things vague in order to work your imagination and leave things open to your interpretation and to be more mysterious. In terms of horror films, I think Cure is an excellent example. We never learn what exactly was going on. You can only guess, and that's what makes it scary, the unknown, the incomprehensible. Well, Until Dawn is somewhere in the dead zone between one of those approaches and the others. It's in the middle. It gives you some explanation, which removes a lot of possibility for what you could have imagined yourself, but it doesn't explain the situation fully. So by the end, you're like, wait, what? How does this work? I admit, I have no idea what the mechanics of the story are supposed to be in the end. Did the crazy doctor engineer all of this, or was he working with what was already there in terms of the time loop? Was he immune to it? If so, why? Was the time loop somehow influenced by the main character, as the doctor suggests? And if so, why her and not someone else? And if so, was it at least partly imagined, or was all of it real? Also, why Wendigos? And if it was Wendigos all along, why all the other horror stuff like the witch and the water and the possessions and the serial killer? How does the mining catastrophe fit into all of this? It's again very frustrating because if the movie told me less, I could have filled in the blanks myself with what I think happened. But what it does is it ensures some explanations are not possible, but then doesn't really help you understand which explanation would fit fully. Really weird narrative structure there. And aside from that, there are some smaller problems. The metaphor of moving on versus being paralyzed by trauma and stuck in a place is so heavy-handed that I think it ceases to really be a metaphor. It is just bashing the viewer on the head with zero subtlety. Acting isn't spectacular. I did like the special effects. Most of those were done in camera with makeup and prosthetics and wires and so on, with CGI only where it was really needed. And I always appreciate that. I think all the creatures and monsters looked okay. All in all though, I can't say I had fun with this. I did have fun with working out why exactly the movie was so disappointing, so I'll give it that. It is interesting from a film analysis perspective, but I don't think it's a good horror film. I think it had a good setup and proceeded to ruin it with some weird choices when it comes to the execution. A shame, really.